The hospital room was always quiet at this hour, the kind of silence that felt heavier than noise, broken only by the steady beeping of monitors and the soft hum of machines keeping one fragile life tethered to the world, and Dr. Adam Karim had grown used to it over the past 6 months, because this room, this patient, had become a part of his daily routine in a way he never expected when he first started his residency. For lying on the bed was Evelyn Hart, a name that once dominated business. Magazines, headlines, and television interviews as one of the youngest self-made millionaires in the country, a woman whose decisions moved markets and whose presence commanded rooms, yet now she lay motionless, eyes closed, her body still except for the rise and fall of her chest under the assistance of machines, trapped in a coma after a devastating accident that the media had long since stopped covering, because the world moves on quickly when there is no drama left to feed on, but Adam had not moved on, because from the first day he was assigned to her care, something about her story, her solitude, and the way no one ever came to visit her had lodged itself deep in his chest, and while other doctors treated her like another case file, another hopeless prognosis whispered about in hallways, Adam treated her like a person, speaking to her softly as he checked her vitals, explaining procedures even though she could not respond, telling her about the sunrise he saw on his way to work. Or the funny mistake a medical student made earlier in the day, because he believed, against all logic and statistics, that somewhere inside, she could hear him. That morning, his task was simple: change her bandages, a routine procedure following a minor surgical intervention to prevent infection, something any nurse could have done, but Adam insisted on doing it himself, carefully removing the old dressing with gentle hands, mindful of her pale skin and the faint scars that told silent stories of battles she had survived long before this hospital bed, and as he worked, he talked, like he always did, telling her about his childhood, about growing up in a small town where his father ran a struggling clinic and taught him that medicine was not just about curing diseases but about honoring human dignity, and he smiled sadly as he said, "You know, Miss Hart, people think money buys you everything, but it doesn't buy someone to sit beside you when the world goes quiet," unaware that his words were drifting into a mind that was no longer as unreachable as everyone believed, because deep within the fog that had trapped her consciousness, Evelyn heard him, not clearly at first, but like a distant echo growing louder with each passing day, his voice becoming an anchor pulling her back from a dark, endless sea. As Adam adjusted the fresh bandage, his fingers brushing lightly against her wrist, the monitor beside the bed flickered, a subtle change in rhythm that he almost missed, but years of training sharpened his instincts, and he paused, eyes narrowing as he looked at the screen, then back at her face, where he thought he saw the slightest movement, a twitch so small it could have been imagined, yet his heart began to race, because hope, once ignited, is impossible to ignore, and he leaned closer, calling her name softly, "Evelyn, if you can hear me, it's okay, you're safe." And then it happened, not dramatically, not like in the movies, but quietly, powerfully, her fingers curled ever so slightly around his, a weak but undeniable response that sent a shock through his entire body, and before he could even call for help, her eyelids fluttered, struggling like heavy curtains lifting after a long night, revealing eyes that were confused, unfocused, but undeniably awake, and the room seemed to hold its breath as the machines reacted, alarms beeping softly, nurses rushing in, yet Adam barely heard them because he was locked in that moment, looking into the eyes of a woman who had just crossed back from the edge of oblivion, and as the staff stabilized her and confirmed what no one had dared to believe, that Evelyn Hart was awake, tears streamed down Adam's face, not from professional triumph, but from something deeper, more human, because she squeezed his hand again, this time with intention, her lips parting as if to speak, and though no words came out, her eyes said everything: gratitude, fear, and a question she did not yet know how to ask. In the days that followed, the hospital buzzed with renewed attention. Specialists flew in, the media sniffed around again, whispers of miracle recoveries and experimental explanations filled the corridors, but Evelyn refused to see anyone at first, not lawyers, not executives, not distant relatives who suddenly remembered her name. She asked for only one person, the young doctor who talked to her when she was invisible, and when Adam walked into her room, nervous and unsure of what to say, she smiled faintly and whispered, "You were the reason I came back," words that shattered every wall he had built around his heart, because he realized then that compassion, consistency, and kindness had done what money and technology could not, and as Evelyn slowly recovered, learning to walk again, learning to live again, she listened to Adam's stories just as he listened to hers, about betrayal in the business world, about loneliness at the top, about how success had cost her everything that truly mattered, and one afternoon, as sunlight poured into the room just like on the day she woke up, she made a decision that stunned everyone. She transferred a massive portion of her wealth into a foundation, not in her own name, but dedicated to compassionate healthcare, funding small clinics, supporting young doctors from humble backgrounds, and when reporters asked her why, she answered simply, because one doctor treated me like a human when I had nothing to offer in return, and Adam watched from the back of the room, humbled, knowing that his simple act of changing a bandage with care had changed 2 lives forever. And if this story moved you, inspired you, or reminded you that kindness still matters in a world obsessed with power and wealth, then don't forget to subscribe to our channel, because every subscription helps us bring you more real, emotional stories that touch the heart, restore faith in humanity, and remind us all that sometimes, the smallest actions create the biggest miracles.